Hello, time for another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Milk, A Global History by Hannah Velten, published in 2010 by Reaktion Books as part of their Edible series. It's 158 pages. Horses, cattle, sheep, and goats were all domesticated somewhere around 10 to 11,000 years ago. And it was around that time that humans began consuming animal milk. Humans are the only animals that drink milk after infancy. But when you think about it, it really makes sense why humans do this. Milk is a fairly safe drink compared to water. In ancient times, water was often contaminated with dangerous bacteria and other pathogens, and milk was fairly safe to drink. It was also an excellent source of calcium, particularly for people living in northern latitudes where there wasn't much sunshine available, and so their bodies couldn't make enough vitamin D on its own because of the lack of sunshine. So milk was a great source of calcium, and then of course it's also a very efficient and rapid way of producing protein. You could wait for the animals to mature, slaughter them, and eat their meat to get protein, or you could just drink their milk. And so that was a great way of getting protein in the diet. And even though the ancients didn't know about calcium or vitamin D or protein, they knew that drinking milk made them feel healthier and stronger. And so it's not surprising that would happen. Now, when it comes to some types of milk, particularly cow's milk, there is an issue, and that issue is the sugar found in milk called lactose. About 75% of the world's population can't digest lactose. There's an enzyme that you inherit that breaks down that, and three-quarters of humans have a mutation where they can't digest, they don't have that enzyme, and so they can't digest the lactose completely, and that results in diarrhea and bloating and gas and stomach cramps and so forth. So it's not surprising that in some cultures there's a taboo to drinking cow's milk because of this lactose intolerance. But there are other forms of animal milk, like goat's milk, that don't have as much lactose in it, so they're more likely to do that. This book goes through the various histories, the various cultural attitudes toward milk. The Romans and the Greeks really avoided drinking milk. They associated milk with milk consumption with barbarians, so Romans and Greeks were cultured civilization, and to drink milk was the act of some barbarian tribes. On the other hand, the Hindus in what is now India, of course, revered milk because cows were considered sacred, and milk was an important ritual liquid in a lot of religious ceremonies and purification ceremonies. So sort of polar opposite attitudes there. The book goes on to describe how milk became increasingly popular drink in the 19th century, but then there was a reaction against it, particularly in Europe, because as the city populations grew in the 18th and 19th centuries in Europe, dairy cattle began to be farmed in urban areas under really terrible conditions. There were diseased cattle being kept in horrible filthy barn conditions, and as a result, a lot of diseases began being passed into the milk. And since milk was often given to children or infants, there was a high rate of infant mortality directly linked to milk consumption. So there was a turning away from that, turning away from milk because of that. The big breakthrough came in 1866 when a chemist named Franz Ritter von Sextelt developed a pasteurization system for milk. Of course, Louis Pasteur is famous for developing pasteurization for wine, and von Sextelt realized that you could use a similar process to kill the bacteria in milk. What he did, and it's a process that's still used today to pasteurize milk, is milk was heated to about 63 degrees Celsius, so below boiling, so the milk didn't scald and the proteins didn't coagulate because of the heat, but high enough to kill the vast majority of the bacteria, but not all. Not all the bacteria is killed in milk, but most of it is. And this pasteurization process suddenly made it a lot safer to consume, and that's when milk began to become popular again. In modern times, there's been kind of a controversy over milk because, especially giving it to infants, there's this whole, many doctors, medical authorities recommend breastfeeding rather than giving milk, animal milk, or formulas in place of that. So there's the whole breastfeeding contingent that says milk is not good. And then, of course, there's the issue of the fats involved in milk. Whole milk is quite fat, has a large amount of butter fat in it as well. And there's other things that some people are allergic, have developed allergies to milk or proteins in milk and so forth. So what's in is the book says toward the end of here, there's two different things going on. Overall, consumption of milk has grown by about 2 or 3% a year. So there's a rapid increase in consumption of milk, but only in certain countries. A number of Asian countries, and the Middle East particularly, there's been an increasing popularity for drinking milk or having milk-based drinks, whereas in North America and Northern Europe, there's been a decline of milk as a drink. Even though there's been a heavy advertising campaign promoting milk as a healthy drink, there's still the sales of milk have been falling, replaced by energy drinks and water, bottled water, and things like that. As usual in these edible series, the books from Reaktion Books, they're heavily illustrated. Most of the illustrations are in color. Here we've got two photographs of some Mongolians. Here is a woman milking a camel, and this is a guy milking a horse. Horse's milk is an important part of Mongolian culture. There's a drink, an alcoholic drink made with fermented mare's milk that is one of the staples of Mongolian culture. And then here we got a couple of advertisements from the famous Got Milk campaign from the early 2000s, where celebrities were shown with a milk mustache trying to popularize milk and make it cool to drink milk. So, and as usual in these books, the end of the book has a list of recipes. In this case, there's some drinks and other foods that involve milk. And then there's a glossary at the back to explain the difference between skim milk and whole milk and reduced fat milk and powdered milk and so forth. So there's a glossary to describe that as well. So if you are interested in milk, or a foodie, and you like just reading about the histories of food and so forth, you'll certainly enjoy this book. It's very brief. I guess it's about 160 pages, lots of illustrations, and I think it's a really fascinating topic, the history of milk consumption in the world. The book is Milk, A Global History. The author is Hannah Velten. This has been another Man and Gray book review. Thanks for watching.